You're in New York, is that right?
I am.
Excellent. Sorry.
Um,
We just have to put nearest city for our like date lines on the footage. Um, and so the letter that came out today, why was it necessary?
so we just feel like there was a moment that needed to happen where the music industry got organized and expressed its position on this virus. We have been talking daily since the beginning of March, and when everything began locking down, there's been emergency calls, like I say, pretty much every day, varying from groups of 5 to 50 to more. Um, and the letter is essentially saying, don't forget that this music industry, the culture economy, has a role to play in the exit strategy, and we would like to be engaged with a really clear conditional plan. It's not really clear enough yet what's been laid out by Oliver Dowden, so we need a clearer plan, and we're happy to help, and we're here basically.
Because a lot of venues are in danger for various different reasons, but money is the bottom of most of them.
Yeah, venues are in danger. Um, Frankly, venues are always in danger. It's hard. Venues are a very low margin business. You know, a an Indian summer or a you know terrorist attack or certain things can cause enough disruption to a venue's future to take it down. But this is sector wide. You know, we're talking about the barbacks and the cleaners and the agent assistants and the audio technician and the manager and the artists themselves. Not Mumford and Sons, not Liam Gallagher, although we are the ones speaking up on it because we have a platform to do so. But it's the tens of thousands of musicians who currently have no way to perform and make money. Gigging musicians. It's a whole economy going on, and it's worth billions a year. But it's not even just about money. Like I want to make sure that those livelihoods are protected and that we don't see a mass exodus from the music industry and really the culture industry because we're talking about theatres and comedy clubs and all these spaces as well. Nightclubs. It's not just gigs. It's not just Glastonbury with the Rolling Stones. You know, we're talking like the local place that you go and spend your money on a Friday night and dance. Um, so yeah, it's a wide issue, and it's about livelihoods, but it's also about our cultural identity. We have to consider what a year off really means in terms of pipeline. Um, Over 10 million people tuned into Glastonbury stream last weekend, and that's just the site. That wasn't even live. That wasn't even something that's. I mean, normally it's higher figures than that. That was just people rewatching, yearning for yesteryear. And um, the thing that I'm worried about, frankly, probably more than anything, or maybe as much, I should say, is the livelihoods that are at risk, is that there won't be anywhere for new talent to um, emerge. If the venues close down, if the promotions companies shut down, everywhere I look, left and right, every day, I get another out of office, I've been let go, or I'll get a text or a WhatsApp from someone being like, I'm out. Like I've either been fired or I can't afford to keep going. Um, and that's musicians. That's the next Ed Sheeran and Adele, who maybe have been getting by on a grand or two a month from doing gigs in their local venues, and I just don't know what it looks like. That's the thing. We fast forward a year or two, and unless we protect this part of our identity, we will be talking about the Stones and the Beatles as kind of the golden age of British culture. Meanwhile, Germany and Australia and many other countries are doing really what it takes to protect the arts. Um, so, so I can go on.
It's all right. It's obviously an important issue. Um, so how close are you kind of following what the government's saying then? Because obviously,
I follow it very closely every day. I look for the latest releases. I watch the debates in Parliament. Um, we talk about it. We do an hour-long session. Obviously, I own 2 venues in London. Um, we have 210 staff at risk. We are right up against it right now. And that's with me and the resources that I've managed to generate over the last 10, 15 years from having a successful career backing it. I'm all in, and it's still at risk. So what about all the other venues that don't have that, who haven't got that benefit? So watching very closely, there's been a 5-step plan released from Oliver Dowden. The principle of it is not completely off. It's saying let's ease into this. The problem is that it's lacking in detail and information. So yeah, of course we need to start with, as we are right now, behind closed doors doing film shoots and rehearsal spaces. We're doing that. We've got great protocols in place, but we haven't got a plan right now for the thousands of shows that have already sold out from September through to March next year. The UK has thousands of shows where the British public have bought tickets to see their favourite act. And right now, phases 4 and 5, or like 3.5, 4 and 5 of the current plan, don't allow for a fully attended show. So the show sold out, but the government restrictions say you can't have a sold out show. It's already happened. The show's sold. So we're in this awful position where we've talked about maybe we do it by alphabetical order and tell people they can't come, if they are XYZs, or do we just cancel the shows that have sold out? The most successful shows, do we punish them? Imagine somewhere like the Albert Hall. Paul Hutton, who's one of the best promoters in the UK, was saying this the other day. Imagine Royal Albert Hall, call it 20 shows in November. 15 of those already today will have sold over 1,500 tickets of the 3,000 capacity. So if the plan is that in November venues can open at 50% capacity, there will be 5 shows, probably maybe even less. But the venue, the Albert Hall, would have to open up with full staff for the whole month. You can't kind of, and meanwhile, what do we do with those shows that have been cancelled and moved? And do people get refunds? And then what happens to the promoters who have relied on cash flows and ticketing companies? It's like a house of cards, So what we really need is a very clear date, a date when something will happen, and then a date when everything will happen. And it can be conditional. It can say, look, we need this to be happening to the R number. We need this to be happening as a signifier from the hospitality industry that's opening up this Saturday. We can follow information and say, if that happens, then venues of this scale or at this capacity can open, and then 100% capacity will happen on this date, and then we can all work towards that. And if things change, if there's a second spike, and or if it's local market specific like we're seeing in Leicester, then people will understand. But at the moment, it's just an existential crisis.
how keen were people to get involved and sign the letter? Because I mean, obviously you're wearing a couple of hats,
Mm.
as a venue owner as well, and you're obviously clearly involved with the music trust, the Music Venues Trust, as well. But when you're just talking about artists, how keen were they to? Because I mean, the long list of people that signed the letter, artist wise, plus all the venues and stuff like that, it is really impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that there's something in the empathy of artists, right, where they rise to the occasion. We over decades have been asked to step up against poverty, step up against injustice, step up against child warfare. You know, whatever the moment was, you'll see musicians on the front line standing there raising awareness, and that's just kind of comes with the territory. It's not something that we do begrudgingly. It's something that feels very natural. I think you have to be somewhat empathetic um, to be a musician. And in this moment, what we're asking by this letter was asking musicians to empathize with the people that they interact with day in, day out. You know, it's our crew. It's the guy who rigged the last Mumford and Sons tour, who's currently stacking shelves in Asda and doesn't really want to be doing that in a year's time, wants to go back to touring the world because he spent the last 20 years doing that. And we want to be able to provide confidence that we have a plan. And I find myself young, sure, but for one reason or another, like you said, wearing different hats in kind of the war room with this thing, and we need government to either step in or step out. I think that's the reality. They need to step in and give clearer, engaged guidance, or they need to just let us get on with it and trust that we know and we respect the public health initiatives, and we don't want to put a burden on the NHS. We don't want a second spike. We're not just saying money rules everything. That's partly why we haven't said anything up until now, because we've just watched, you know, as this virus has kind of ravaged the earth, and we have been planning behind the scenes as to what we need to do next, but it hasn't felt like the time to be talking about the music industry. But if we don't do it now, especially coming up on, you know, we're in July, in August, the beginning of the job retention scheme, which for anyone who's actually under employment, so it doesn't help so much the freelancers and the artists, but for anyone who works at the venues and the promotions companies and the ticketing companies, they've benefited from this job retention scheme. But that's getting pulled back from August, and there isn't currently an exemption or a plan for our sector that we don't know. Maybe we're not going to come back on until next spring. We don't know, and that means that everyone has to go. There is no money. Um, the only other thing I'll add, Hilary, is that um, we've never been kind of a sector to ask for handouts. Um, you know, even in various financial crises over the last few decades, you'll struggle to find the music industry being the one that says we need to focus on this. It's always about the manufacturing industry and the airline industry, and there's, you know, all the banks or whatever the area is, and we're there to help normally. But I think that because of the nature of this virus and the fact that we don't have the levers that we normally do to get to, like, pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and get going again. Um, I'm you know, humbly joining in the request of thousands of people right now to say we could do with a little bit of attention.
Yeah. Final question, really, just kind of picking up on a point that you mentioned in passing earlier about the gap of talent and the talent that we will lose out on if people don't have venues or there isn't a music industry or a career path available for them anymore. How damaging do you think it would be?
I hate to think just across the two venues that I own and operate, we would have lost 350 shows this year. Um, Within those shows would have been the moments that would be the sparks that would have led to the excitement of next year. You know, over the last couple of years, we've had the first performances from people like Dermot Kennedy and Sam Fender's first London show, Maggie Rogers' first London show, Octavian's birthday party, Georgia Smith, Mahalia. These artists use these venues as a place to share their music and for the press and the media to find out about them, and then you read about them in the papers, you know, over the weekends, and then maybe they step up and go on and on. I can't even fathom what a year without those opportunities looks like. And the problem is that's we kind of have to get over that. That's happening. Like we've lost that year. The thing we need to protect is that there is enough infrastructure in 2021 remaining that we can actually recover. Because I've got to say, a number of the venues I speak to weekly are currently looking at what bankruptcy looks like, what going under, what walking away from their lease looks like, because the rent protection that has been there for some really does go away. And it's just been for a lot of people, just deferment, right? So you actually have to end up paying it, and there still is no revenue. So the landlord can step in, come later in the year, come October, and say, I want to get paid now. And there hasn't been any income. So things haven't changed. And we've all been looking at whether it be the kind of business interruption loan scheme, the grant systems. Everyone, like, people should assume that this is the last resort. We've been working for months on this. And like I said, we don't normally come forward about it. We can fend for ourselves, and the industry is sustainable on a normal year.
Thank you very much for your time. I think we've covered like most of the main points there. It's incredibly depressing.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Welcome to my brain for the last few months.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've just spent the last couple of days just talking to the Music Industries Trust people about, the Save Our Venues stuff, and that was depressing enough.
I know.
Yeah, it's really.
I think it does. The thing is, it doesn't take that much. That's the crazy thing about this, is that the numbers we're talking about, especially what Music Venues Trust are focusing on, in the grand scheme of things, it should just be a check that's written.
Yeah.
Because even the risk of what might happen should be enough to save. But I think across the whole industry, there needs to be freelance and artist support. Like I say, it's affecting people beyond the venues, but without venues, the whole thing doesn't work, because there's nowhere for anyone to play or promote or gather. But yeah, no, I appreciate you focusing on it, and happy to talk further about it if you want to do a follow up at any time in the next.
I may well do. We're gonna look into more that we can do. We're gonna look into our archives, because obviously we've got lots of footage of people playing, loads going back to the Cavern. We've got lots of like little venues and stuff that have like launched careers and stuff. So in the archive, which I was starting, that's what I was working on before the letter came out, like looking through, working out what we've got, how we can make it like a big, well-rounded story about it. But obviously today it's a bit more urgent to speak to people.
I was doing a bit of a Parliament briefing this morning with Philip, Barry, and Emma Banks and Beverly Knight. I really recommend that you take a minute with especially Emma Banks. She can talk on this from the perspective of an agent. She's the co-chair of CAA, and I think I've found it really helpful talking to her throughout. But today she presented so clearly on the matter that if you wanted to get some more perspective on it, I'd definitely follow up with her.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah, I will do. Was this, because when I spoke to Mark earlier, he had his earphones in and he was listening to a government briefing. Was that you? Yeah. He came through him on the Zoom and he was like just sending messages like 5 minutes. He's like, I have to listen. Oh God, you've been up early then.
Yeah, no, started at 6, and I was on. I did the Today Show on 4 at 11:30 last night. So it's been sort of both sides of it. But
yeah, no, it's worth doing, isn't it? Well, thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I will hopefully speak to you again, let's say under better circumstances.
Yeah. It will be.